Thought it wasn't going to work for a second. Right. I'm just going to just quickly pin what this is going to be about. Hint tips. Hello. Right, 1 second. And there we go. Okay, perfect. Hi. Hello, hi everyone. Right, so as with last week, so we've got this session to give you some tips for applications to study overseas. So for anyone here who's new, I'm Sarah and I work as one of the advisors for IEC. And basically with these sessions we want to just give you some tips and advice for applications to go and study abroad. So what we'll do, we'll wait just a minute before we get fully in the swing of the session and then we'll get started. In the meantime, just if you have any questions, please feel free to message. I can see we've got someone from Colombia, which is great. I hope you're doing well. I know that obviously these are very complicated times, so yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. All the best from me and the team at IEC. Okay, so yeah, well, this is a thing. So one quick thing to say before I get started is for this session I'm going to be particularly concentrating on the UK, so the personal statement for the UK, but I think that a lot of the tips I'm going to give could also be relevant for other destinations, so also relevant for applications to Holland, for example, or the US. Just general advice about how to write a personal statement in English. Okay, so hello to the new people. So what I'll do is I'll get started now. And as I say, any questions, please let me know. Okay, so first of all, what is the personal statement? So the personal statement is your opportunity to present yourself to the university, basically to tell them who you are, what you want to study, and to give them an idea about the person behind the application, which is really important. With the universities, when they receive your application, of course they see your grades, they can see in English we say face value information about you, but they don't get an idea about who you are as a person. Okay, or get an idea a bit more about why you want to study what you want to study, and that's where the personal statement comes in. So this is you giving a voice or a bit more of a personality behind your application. So first of all, for the UK, it's 4,000 characters in length. So 4,000 characters is more or less 1 page of A4, obviously depending on the font size you have, but that could be anything between maybe 630 words to 670 words. So it just depends on how, the character count, but that would be how much it would be more or less. So have a look for this kind of length for your personal statement. With the personal statement, when we speak to our students, the first thing that is quite daunting is obviously thinking, okay, I want to study this, I know I want to study this, but I'm not sure how to express this to my audience, to the admission team who are going to look at my application. So with the personal statement, I think that one really key thing to do is to speak to your parents, speak to your family, because I think that can be really helpful. And also, before you start writing, have a plan of action in mind. So this, to be honest, would be the same pretty much for any piece of work you do. So whether you're submitting a piece of work for your secondary school or for wherever you're studying, you'll always have some kind of plan of action when you're writing an essay. So whilst it's a personal statement, in terms of the format, think of it a little bit as an essay, so where you have to think about exactly what you want to say in order to shape your ideas. So obviously you'll have your introduction, introducing why you want to study, what you want to study. Then you'll have the conclusion at the end, and in the middle we have the body of the text. And that's going to be our main focus for this session, okay? So in terms of the body of the text, you can include things such as what you've learnt at school, things that you've read or watched, things you read on university course descriptions, on the university website, any work experience you've had, then also extracurricular activities. So these are the 5 things that I'm going to be discussing today. So the first thing, so what you've learnt at school. This will depend completely in terms of what you studied at school and what you want to study for your degree. So obviously depending on your particular circumstance, some people, will want to study something that is directly related to one of their bachillerato subjects, to one of their A levels, and for others of you it won't, so this will depend. But if, for example, you want to study a science, you can talk about maybe the different lab work you've done, the areas that you found particularly interesting, and that would be something that would be really useful, and it'd be really good for the admissions team to be able to see how what you studied at school has influenced your decision. So that's something that's really important if it's applicable for you. And another thing that we think is really important is to kind of show your external influences. So what are your influences outside of school? And this could be, for example, maybe even a book you've read. This could even be a fictional book and how it's inspired you to think about areas related to what you want to study. I had a student who did this for PPE, and it was really interesting. I really like what he did with that, and he got some great offers. That's one thing you could do. There's also things like news articles that can be really informative and help you begin to shape your ideas for your interests. This may be particularly for international relations, but across fields you can have a look at the news and see how your area of study is important in society, and that can be good to shape your ideas. And my personal favourite, just because I like them anyway, TED Talks are great. Go on YouTube, have a look at the TED Talks channel and kind of see what discussions, do they have related to what you want to study. They're really, really good videos regardless. So they'll, get you more interested in what you want to study anyway. And they are really helpful for the personal statement. So those are some of the things that I'd really stress to do. Also, one thing in terms of this research or making reference to things that you've read, some students will look at me as if to say, but I've not done that yet, and that's absolutely fine. You can conduct research specifically for your personal statement. That's fine. That's kind of a bit like any piece of work that you want to do. It's fine to, take your, have a look and see what's out there. That's no problem. So don't worry if you don't already have this information. That's no problem at all. You do your research, conduct your research, and then see afterwards in terms of what you actually want to refer to. Okay. Then another key thing is when you write your personal statement, you want to have the universities in mind. Okay. So have a look at their web pages, see what they say. Of course, you can't, you want to be very careful to not be saying too closely to what they're saying on their web pages. But for example, when you look at the list of modules, are there particular things that you're interested in that you could think, oh, okay, so this university is teaching this. This is an area I'm really interested in, so I'll see if I can feed that into my statement. That is really, really important. Also, you need to make sure that what you're saying in your statement supports your application, because sometimes, if you're writing about something and the university thinks you could be better matched to one of their other programs, they can also make you alternative offers for the UK. So that's something to bear in mind as well, to try and make sure that your personal interest is reflective of your interest, but also reflective a little bit of what the course is offering. Okay, so that's something to really bear in mind. Another thing, so it's a lot of things to put into this statement. If you've had any work experience. Now this is very difficult, and I know that many of you could be, 17, 18, and you might not have had any work experience yet, and that's fine. But any experiences you've had, for example, if you've done some shadowing in a law firm, if you've been able to, go into a business to shadow what someone's doing, these are all really great experiences and something that would definitely be relevant in a personal statement. Volunteering can also be, such a great experience anyway on a personal level, but it's also something that you could speak about in your personal statement, especially if it's something related to what you want to study or it somehow influenced your decision of what you want to study. That could be really important. Okay, then finally the last section is the extracurricular activities section or area to talk about, and this can feel quite strange after you've done the rest of the statement very much speaking about what you want to study, related to what you studied at school, things that you've read surrounding what you want to study, things that you've watched. It can feel quite forced to suddenly have to talk about what you like to do outside, of your studies, but it is something that's really important. The universities like the fact that their students are well-rounded individuals who are interested in, their particular subject of study, but they also perhaps, like a particular sport, that kind of thing. That's something that's really important. I've just seen a question, any advice on what you should not include? I will get to that later. I've got some do's and don'ts, so I'll definitely do that. But yes, so with the extracurricular activities, things like sports you do are really, really good to mention. And it just kind of shows, as I say, that you're a rounded individual, and then you can relay them back to, to the different skills you have. So maybe from being on a sports team, you've improved as, a team player. You've improved in terms of your determination or channeling your energy. These are all really good things that you can include in your personal statement. So when you speak about your extracurricular activities, it's to, convey your additional interests, but also to convey your skills. So whether it's, as I say, team player skills, communication skills, all of that is really, really important. So this is the general kind of structure. So we've got our body of things that we've just discussed there. And then in terms of the introduction and conclusion, I often find that these will kind of amend based on the body of the text in the middle. So with the conclusion particularly, sometimes it's almost as though the conclusion writes itself. So you've got your introduction, you've got the body of text with the different ideas, and then your conclusion is obviously very much reflecting on what you've just said. So this central section is really important in defining how your introduction and how your conclusion is going to be. So the final kind of section I want to talk about are the do's and don'ts. So in terms of key things to do, obviously the personal statement is going to be corrected by someone who is trained to correct personal statements, who'll be seeing loads of personal statements a day. So it's really important that you proofread it well in English. Potentially, if you could ask a native speaker to have a look, that would be great. So make sure that it's completely in correct English, that it reads well, when you read it. And also, one thing that admission teams are always saying to us, that they really like it when students convey their enthusiasm for a subject. So whilst you need to maintain that the tone is correct, that it's academic and that it's well written, you can also show your enthusiasm for what you're speaking about. That's something that's also really important. Another do, so things you need to do, is to be prepared to write several drafts. Okay, so this is something that some students could even do, somewhere between 4 and 8 drafts. It is something that is a big piece of work that is important, and whilst it might not be very long and just a page long, it is something that you'll dedicate quite a lot of time working on. So be prepared for that. Also, this is kind of going back to what I said about speaking to your family and your friends. Get someone else to read it through, and they can kind of give you ideas of anything else they think you could say, because it can be useful for someone else, especially someone close to you, to read through the text, because they know you and they'll kind of know how best to present you as well, so they could give you some inspiration of things to include as well. So that's another thing that I definitely recommend. And then another do, another thing that I recommend is to do research. I think that strengthens your personal statement. It also, makes you feel more positive or confident in terms of what you want to study. So definitely do that from the beginning, and have a think about what you want to say. So these would be the key things I suggest you do. And now in terms of things to avoid, the first one's quite an unusual one, because you'll find that later on you can do a couple of quotes, for example. But basically, when you do your personal statement, maybe you're looking at a text and you see a quote from an author, a quote from an academic that you really like. As tempting as it is, try and refrain from using that quote. So the admission teams are really set that they want to see, what you think. They want to receive your words rather than you using the words of someone else. Okay, so that's something that's really, really important. Another thing that I've had sometimes is students will unintentionally say something that's a little bit negative, and it will be completely unintentional. But for example, something like, I used to do figure skating until I was 16, but then I quit because I found it boring. So things like that, Try and avoid anything negative. We want everything to be positive, everything. Even if you did finish it, you can still close it saying what you gained from that experience. Everything as positive as possible. And then finally, because we have such a limit in terms of, the word count, the character count, try to be as, precise as possible, but try to not repeat anything as well. So although you might want to say something in a slightly different way, make sure that anything that you say is adding to your personal statement to improve it. That's something that's really important. Okay, so this is the personal statement, the summary. For those of you who've just joined now, please feel free to have a watch of this afterwards. So this will be live and saved for 24 hours. Okay, and for our next session, which will be the same time next week, I'm going to speak about the recommendation letter. Okay, so with a recommendation letter, for those of you who don't know, for applications to the UK, the recommendation letter is part of the requirements of your application, so you'll need a teacher to write a letter recommending you to your universities. So I'll be speaking about that to help you with any doubts you have or any questions, just to make things as clear as possible, for teachers, as we have found in the past that it can be something that's quite confusing. Okay. If any of you have any questions, sorry, I've been talking away. Let me just see if I've missed any questions. I don't think I have. If anyone has got any questions, please feel free to send me a message now. And also, so if you don't want to do it on this chat right now, please feel free to just send me a message on the part with the arrow, so on the IEC homepage. Okay. One other thing that's really important that I've completely forgot to mention, I'm sorry. So when I've spoken about the different books you can read and the different texts, one of my colleagues, Alison Truly, will actually be doing a feature called Books for Thought, and we'll have our first Books for Thought on the 15th of May, so this Friday. We'll be advertising this on our social media pages, but please keep an eye out, and this is going to be great. It's going to be really good. She's going to speak about different texts or different ideas of things you can read, and she'll be looking at that a little bit in terms of different areas of study, so please keep an eye out for that. Perfect. Thank you very much to everyone for taking the time to watch me, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Bye!